What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to talk about the possibility of Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier 3 to be going down sometime in the near future. Justin Gaethje said prior to UFC 306 that he was starting to get back into the UFC octagon and starting to continue his practicing and training prior to a fight coming up here in the near future. Justin Gaethje says he's hungry for another title shot. He wants to be able to regain his ground in the UFC title race, and he named a couple individuals that he would really want to fight. He ended up saying Dustin Poirier was one of them, and Dustin Poirier responded and said that he was down, which would mean these two individuals would have a third fight between one another. I think all the fans would love this, and I think that this fight has a real possibility of happening. But before we jump right into the video between these two fighters, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers, so if you guys could please go down there and smash the subscribe button, it would mean so very much if you guys could do so. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always staying updated with the most recent MMA content as it releases daily, since I do try to get out MMA content about everything that's going around out in the MMA community. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video of Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 3 possibly happening very soon. So Justin Gaethje came out and was talking about his next fight inside the UFC, and he named 4 individuals who would really be of worth of fighting for him. He named Alexander Volkanovski, Dan Hooker, Charles Oliveira, and Dustin Poirier as 4 potential opponents coming up here for the highlight himself. Now, Charles Oliveira just signed a fight with Michael Chandler, so that really isn't in the equation right now. Alexander Volkanovski is going to be at a featherweight title shot. I know he was hinting at the idea of possibly going up to lightweight to fight, but I truly think that Alexander Volkanovski is going to stay in the featherweight division to eventually rematch Ilia Topuria or get an interim fight with Diego Lopez for that UFC featherweight title. That leaves 2 viable options, being Dan Hooker and Dustin Poirier. And recently, Dustin Poirier came out on Twitter and said he is always in to fight Justin Gaethje, and I think that that is the fight that needs to happen for Dustin Poirier's last fight. These 2 individuals are 1-1 against each other in their UFC career. Their first event took place in Arizona, I don't remember what year it was, but it was a crazy fight night main event where Dustin Poirier got a 4th round TKO over Justin Gaethje in one of the bloodiest, best fights in UFC history. Their last fight took place at UFC 291 in the main event at UFC Salt Lake City in a crazy bout for the BMF title between these 2 individuals. And Justin Gaethje ended up getting the 2nd round head kick knockout, just like Leon Edwards back in Salt Lake City the year prior, in a very incredible bout between these 2 individuals. Truly, this was an absolutely insane fight for Justin Gaethje to be able to stop Dustin Poirier by head kick. But these 2 fighting again would be something absolutely out of a movie, considering Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje still have it. In Justin Gaethje's last bout, he fought Max Holloway, who looked better than ever at UFC 300, in an absolutely amazing battle and fight to the death between him. That was an absolutely amazing fight that occurred, and Justin Gaethje sadly got knocked out with 1 second left. Dustin Poirier, on the other hand, fought Benoit Saint-Denis at UFC 299. He knocked Benoit out in the 2nd round in a 5-round co-main event under Sean O'Malley and Chito Vera. He then came back to face Islam Makhachev at UFC 302, put up an incredible fight, and ultimately sadly got finished by Darce in the 5th round. Dustin Poirier is said to retire after his next fight, and he wants to make his last fight a good one. So there's been names thrown out there for potential opponents going to Dustin Poirier. People have said that Dan Hooker would be a great fight for him, considering that Dustin Poirier's fight with Dan Hooker was one of the best fights in UFC history as a main event of a fight night card in the UFC Apex. Now, Justin Gaethje, as another name out there, would be an incredibly amazing fight to be had, considering the history of these 2 individuals. And I do think the UFC is going to eventually go with a Justin Gaethje fight. I think that's the fight to be made. I think there's unspoken legacy between these 2 individuals in the fight game, and the truly just amount of respect that these 2 have for one another after especially that fight at UFC 291 and that other fight for Justin Gaethje. They just want to go in there and rematch. Dustin Poirier was ready to rematch on the spot against someone like Justin Gaethje because he felt so strongly and was so invested into that fight, considering that he wanted to get that win so badly. Justin Gaethje is an absolute monster in there. He is called the highlight for a reason. And he also has kind of another phrase by him saying that he is your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. Justin Gaethje is an absolute monster in there. And truly, he is one of the best fighters inside the UFC organization and truly takes everything to another level inside the UFC octagon. So I think it's only right for Justin Gaethje to face Dustin Poirier in his last fight for UFC, just as UFC possibly get not that BMF title, but just as a possible main event of a pay-per-view card of an absolute bon voyage tour for Dustin Poirier, considering Dustin Poirier's incredible legacy inside the UFC. He was the interim champion at one point. He just fought Islam Makhachev. He's got 3 title shots. He sadly hasn't won any of them, but Dustin Poirier is a fan favorite, someone who was able to beat Conor McGregor twice, and someone who is an absolute mauler inside the UFC. Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 3 is a fight that needs to go down inside the UFC, and a fight that Dana White would 100% be would be able to get behind, considering the violent nature of these two men, and just an absolute history between these two individuals. I know Dustin Poirier wants to get revenge at Justin Gaethje. I know Justin Gaethje wants to break the tie between these two individuals to say he's the better fighter. There's no animosity between these two, but rather just the competitive spirit that flows throughout their entire bouts. Now, who do I think would win in the third fight? Justin Gaethje is an incredibly calculated fighter ever since he switched to fighting with Trevor Whitman after that Michael Chandler fight. After he took some time off against Michael Chandler and he came back and fought Charles Oliveira and got knocked out pretty quickly, he took a good amount of time. He took from UFC 274 to UFC 286 once he fought Rafael Fiziev, and came back in a much mannered bout in that fight against Fiziev, which really did help him really slow things down, be able to pick up the tempo at times, throw off his opponent, and be a lot more calculated in different things. And that's the correct word to say, is calculated, because a calculated Justin Gaethje is an incredibly hard opponent to face, and someone like Dustin Poirier is incredibly calculated himself. He's got great takedown defense, especially shown in the Islam Makhachev fight. You could definitely tell that Dustin Poirier drilled for that entire Islam Makhachev fight, and his takedown defenses were so much better against Islam than they were against Khabib Nurmagomedov when they fought originally at UFC in the 240s there. But Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier is a banger fight. I think that there's so many levels into this fight, considering the head kick knockout, the first knockout, all the different mind games from the two different coaches, have that MMA top team coach with Trevor Whitman in the Onyx Gym in Denver, Aurora, Colorado. There is so many amazing people over there in that gym that really can help Justin Gaethje win, but there's so many amazing individuals at American Top Team that makes this fight so engaging between Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. And like I said, it's an absolute coin flip going up, considering of how bad these two men are, of some of the absolute nastiest individuals inside the UFC organization. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comment section about Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier battling it out for a third time inside the UFC octagon. That first fight was incredible. The second fight I wish lasted longer. I remember watching that and just having that fight end so early, and of how absolutely stunned I was that Gaethje got the knockout, but of how utterly disappointed I was that I was robbed for 3 more rounds, or almost 4 more rounds, of Justin Gaethje going up against Dustin Poirier. These two have such ties inside the UFC octagon. They are some of the most fun fighters inside the UFC. As we all know, Justin Gaethje is your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. Dustin the Diamond Poirier is just so entertaining every single time he steps in the UFC octagon, knocking out Benoit Saint-Denis, that Michael Chandler fight, the Islam Makhachev fight. All the fights that he's in are so entertaining to watch, and Dustin Poirier doesn't take one fight that isn't exciting. So these two individuals fighting again for a third time. This fight would not only allow Justin Gaethje to thrust himself into title contention with a win over someone like Dustin Poirier, but would allow Dustin Poirier, if he did win, to go out on a high note of his career, to retire on the spot, saying that he is one of the greatest lightweights of all time, even though he was unable to secure the UFC undisputed lightweight title. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications, just so you guys can stay updated with the most recent UFC content that releases upon my channel every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.